Hi, friends, and welcome. Thank you for joining us on Navigating the Now. Here, two friends navigate life's challenges and complexities as Christian women, mothers, and wives. So come sit with us. We hope you enjoy today's episode.
I'm Michaela, and I'm here with my friend Christine. Today, we're going to be talking about self-care. This is a hot topic in today's world as people learn how to cope and deal with the challenging circumstances that have been happening over the last few years. I believe what this looks like, or what the definition of self-care is, has evolved over time. But we do recognize that the Lord, through his word, gives us some direction on what self-care should look like. So with that, Christine, what do you think the world's definition of self-care is, and how does that compare with a biblical definition?
So definitely been seeing self-care become more prominent. This idea that you need to take care of yourself before you take care of others. It's becoming more popular, especially as you see people get more busier and busier. So essentially, the idea is you need to set time aside for yourself to do things that you like to do things that rejuvenate you and that give you energy. And this can take the form of many different things, right? I think of common stereotype as, taking a calming salt bath or eating cake or any other kind of self-indulgent activity that just, gives you a chance to unplug, reset, and focus on you. As far as a biblical definition goes, I think, I don't know I can't think of a specific passage in the Bible that talks about self-care, but I still think it's important for us to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
There's the saying that you can't, or you have to put your own, mask on before you put the mask on, somebody else. I guess I'm talking about like when you're in an airplane and they give you a little briefing. But yeah, if you can't take care of yourself and you're just running yourself into the ground, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to take care of others.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a huge aspect of self-care is, in today's culture, is just rest. We're so busy, like our schedules are so full. We're constantly going from one thing to the next, and that can be where that need for some self-care comes from. So I think rest is a really great part of that, which is also outlined in the Bible. I just learned this, or I came to this realization a few weeks ago. Like, it's one of the 10 commandments, like to rest, to honor the Sabbath. Like, it's not a suggestion. Like the Lord gave that to us as a gift to use. And when we don't use that, we're essentially rejecting that gift of rest that he gave us, and honoring the Sabbath. But you're right, like it can look different ways for different people. Just some other like practical things I try to do personally are like intentional prayer, taking a walk, or having like accountability, like with either like a mentor or with a group of other women who have a similar lifestyle that I do. Yeah. What are some ways that you have practiced self-care?
Yeah, this is very hard for me. I just, my personality, it's very go-getter, go, go, go. If I'm sitting still, I get kind of nervous, almost anxious. Like, why am I not doing something? So, honestly, doing this podcast with you has been huge for me. It's been one of the more enjoyable things that I've done in a while.
Yeah.
I think another thing that lately I found has really helped me is setting clear boundaries for myself. So at a certain time at night, I'm just going to not do anything else, or just just really keeping a more conscious, I don't know, conscious look at the time that I'm giving the different areas of my life. So, how much time have I given to work versus the guard versus my family? And if I notice that I really haven't had a whole lot of time for me to just sit and relax, then I'll start to say no to different things and
Yeah.
kind of back off a little bit. Um, so boundary setting, I found, has actually been a very crucial aspect of self-care for me.
Yeah, which is so important because like if you don't set boundaries, like anything goes. Like you're going to say yes to everything. Like it's very you're right. It's very important to set clear boundaries of what you have to say no on and what you have to just like take a break from.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't set those boundaries, especially you and I think we have those very type A personalities where we want to give it all. We want to do a great job, not just a good job, a great job.
Mm-hmm.
But without those boundaries, it's really easy to burn out.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And like it's so like the idea of rest is so countercultural to today, to our country. Like you said, we don't know now as a people how to just be, how
Mm-hmm.
to be still when it's quiet, when there's nothing to do. Like we're just worried about the fact that we're not doing anything. Like instead of enjoying that rest and that time,
Yeah.
it's yeah, very countercultural.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times on LinkedIn or Facebook I've seen these motivational posts that are like, if you're not hustling, everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. If you're not hustling and these spare hours, then you're lazy
Mhm.
and you're never going to get anywhere or whatever. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, you know what? At some point you just need to sit down and relax.
Yeah. Yeah. Like recharge, regroup. Yeah. I was recently reading, I've started taking a new approach kind of on how I read and meditate on the Bible. Instead of like just focusing on one passage, I try to look at like a chapter or two chapters at a time. And I had a realization when I was reading in Matthew a couple weeks ago when Jesus received the news about John the Baptist being killed. Like that was someone who was very close to him, that he had a very close relationship with, and he had just been murdered. And like that would be devastating news. And within moments of him learning that, the crowds of 5,000 or more people came asking him to perform this miracle of creating enough food for all these people from what would have only been enough for a few people. And like instantly, he did not hesitate. He performed that miracle. He showed his love in that way through them. But then when that was over, is when he told his disciples, like, look, I'm going over here to be alone by myself with my father. And I love that story so much because it's like he didn't let his grief and his need to take a minute stop him from blessing all of those people, but he still made time for it even though it was a little bit prolonged from him finding out the news. Like I think that that is such a cool story that portrays Jesus's character.
Yeah. So what I like about that story is how Jesus um, wasn't selfish in his self-care. He saw a need and he addressed that need. He fulfilled a need in other people's lives and yet still took time for himself. And I think that's an important lesson for me, um, to see that you can stretch your limits, you know, stretch those boundaries,
Mhm.
but at the same time also respect your boundaries and respect the fact that you do still need to take care of yourself, to rest.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a fine line. Where do you where do you think that line is? Do you think it's the same for everyone? Do you think it varies over self-care, when it crosses over to selfishness, which I think is something we really struggle with today, since because self-care is so promoted. It's like, oh, do this for yourself, take care of yourself in this way, do this. And it's like, okay, at what point does that just become selfish and
Yeah.
not uplifting?
Right. I mean, right off the bat, I think that when your responsibilities are neglected outright,
Yeah.
that's definitely,
Mm.
that's not good. That's very selfish in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that, I guess I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, right? So, I was talking about, you have these boundaries, you have these limitations.
Mhm.
Limitations exist. Um, so I'll give you an example, running, right?
Mhm.
You can only run so fast. Everybody has a physical ability to run so fast, but the way you get better at running is by running,
Mhm.
by putting yourself through discomfort. So in our day-to-day lives, um, when we start to approach that boundary of, wow, I'm really putting forth this effort, I'm getting tired, I think I might need to take a break. There could be a time, like that story with Jesus having just heard that, that news, and then having to
Mhm.
turn around and feed the 5,000. There are times when you have to push those boundaries. Um, and I think that if you're always stepping back and choosing you, you miss
Mhm.
out on an opportunity to maybe stretch yourself a little bit and maybe push those boundaries a little bit. So maybe that's not selfish so much,
Yeah.
but I think you're missing out on an opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Because I think too, when it's like when you start putting yourself first a lot and like trying to take care of yourself first, that, put your mask on first mindset, like sometimes that can, in a way, harm others. I mean, if others are having to sacrifice for you to do this for yourself, like that's, I think, when it gets to be a little bit too far. And I know that's harder for others, it's easier for others. Um, but there's also this stigma in today's culture that life is supposed to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
We're all about comfort. We're all about how can I do this faster, better, easier so I don't have to do as much, so I don't have to work as hard. Like, and especially for Christians, we're just like, okay, like I've accepted Jesus, he has saved my soul. Like, shouldn't things be working out better?
Mm-hmm.
And like that's such a it's a false like hope, because we're never told that life is going to be easy. Like we're never told that we're going to be comfortable. Like we're actually told the exact opposite. Like
Yeah.
we're told as followers of Jesus that life is actually going to be more challenging because we are not of this world. Um, the world would be against us in our thinking. And so um, that's something to keep in mind, like just because you're a little uncomfortable or like just because you're challenged in some area, like that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to like to take it easy on yourself. You know what I mean? Like we can't just be looking all the time for comforts. Like that's why so many people throughout the Bible, including Jesus, like did things like fasting. Like fasting is not fun. It's
No.
not comfortable. There's no like security in that. It's just like a way to remind yourself that you're human, that you have this need, and if it's not met, like you're pushed to different limits and to new areas that you would probably never have gotten to otherwise. But yeah, I think we get sometimes too caught up on just trying to find comforts in life instead of embracing and figuring out how to endure through the challenges and the uncomfortableness.
Yeah. Absolutely. What do they call it? The instant gratification society, microwave
Yes.
generation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I am serious though. Like doing the podcast with you has been like, I don't know, the best thing I've been doing for myself for a while.
Mm.
Um, I don't know if you've ever heard of Jen Fulwiler. So she's a Catholic author, podcaster,
Okay.
6 kids in 8 years, that kind of person.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. Um, she talks about self-care a lot, and she wrote a book called The Blue Flame,
Okay.
and that is about finding the thing that brings you alive, right? The idea is that God gave everybody a passion,
Mm-hmm.
and it's unique to everybody, and doing this passion turns you alive and rejuvenates you. And in that book, she just really talks about the importance of finding that blue flame, because in doing so, um, it's like self-care, right? You're taking care of yourself
Yeah.
while at the same time doing something that you're passionate about that also helps others. So
Mm.
that's a really cool way, I think, of making or your self-care turning into something that could benefit others. And I'm kind of hoping that this self-care thing for me, this podcasting thing, is actually able to benefit others.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, she's right. Like, we are given like gifts and talents, and like self-care doesn't have to look like rest all of the time. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to look like taking a walk or having a conversation. Like, self-care can 100% be serving someone else. Like, there is so much fulfillment in just pure selfless giving and service. Like, that can absolutely be something that fills you up.
Yeah, isn't that weird how, like, even when you're actively doing something that could be tiring, if you're doing it because, for a good reason, for a reason that you are passionate about, that you feel led to do,
Yeah.
like for a reason that God places on your heart, it's rejuvenating. This
Yeah.
thing that is tiring is at the same time rejuvenating. So,
Yeah.
even though I might be staying up later than I want, looking at different platforms to do this on and trying to edit different things, like it's rejuvenating, it's exciting. So that's
Yeah.
just kind of cool when self-care and blessing others, when those worlds collide, they're not
Yeah.
necessarily exclusive, mutually
Mm-hmm.
exclusive.
Yeah. Yeah. Even like, I remember there were times in college where we would just like stay up late talking just about life after college, about the future. And it was just like the next thing we'd know, it'd be like midnight. And it's just like, okay, but this was like, sure, I'm ready to go to sleep now, but like I feel rejuvenated. Like, this is, something that has kind of given us a sense of renewal, that otherwise wouldn't, staying up that late.
Right. Yeah, like if I were staying up that late to write a paper, I'd be very angry and grumpy and tired.
Right.
But yeah, having good conversations, you know it's a lot different. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember like same thing, like having deep conversations with others close, like whether it's a spouse or whether it's a mentor, like if I haven't like met with my mentor like over a couple of months, like I feel that need. Like I feel like, okay, I need to reach out to her. We need to meet. Like we've got to talk. And it's like there's nothing in particular I want to talk about, but I know conversation with someone who has that sort of influence on my life is just something like my spirit craves. And it's very
Hmm.
fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to find me a mentor.
Yeah, and or even like, like a small group of
Hmm.
women, like it's so easy, and that's something that's happened so easily over the last couple years. Isolation and distancing, like it is so easy to just get caught up in your own head and your own thoughts. But like when I spend time with other women who are moms, who are wives, who have full-time jobs, like I just get a whole new like my mind is renewed because I'm like, okay, like I'm not doing this alone, and
Hmm.
like they're doing it too, and like we can exchange ideas of like how certain routines look and things like that, and I'm just like like I needed that. I needed that.
Yeah. It's like community is a
Mm-hmm.
very important aspect of self-care, which is kind of ironic that, we're thinking about taking care of ourselves, but it's the reaching out to others that rejuvenates us, which,
Yeah.
as an introvert slash, not very outgoing social person, is a very interesting concept, because I feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bad habit of trying to, take care of my own emotions by myself and keeping everything sequestered and not reaching out. Bad habit of not reaching out. But when I do, I feel so much better
Yeah.
after taking the time to reach out, be vulnerable, share where I'm at. And I'm blessed by the wisdom that I receive from others.
Yeah. Yeah. And that can look, different for different people, whether it's friends or a mentor or your like church family or even like a therapist. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with reaching out in that way because like you said, sometimes it feels good to just talk about it. Like whether or not who you're talking to has the right answer or an answer you were looking for, like sometimes just that act of sharing can be
Yeah.
a form of self-care. All right, well, I guess that wraps it up on today's talk of self-care. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to share any thoughts or opinions with us on how you feel about self-care. And till then, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you would like to share your thoughts, please visit our website at www.navigatingthenow.show. Until then, we'll see you next time.